Sun Tzu lays out 5 major factors to consider in war deliberations: the moral law, heaven, earth, the commander, method, and discipline. The moral law is about people being in complete accord with their ruler and do what is needed despite the danger. This is basically about unity of spirit and goal, seeing as there isn't really a ruler in Marvel Rivals. And this is pretty easy to achieve in Rivals. We all want the objective and to win, and it's not that hard to risk your digital body. Heaven signifies the atmosphere, day or night, hot or cold, changes of the season. Obviously, those aren't really big issues in Rivals. You can't get hypothermia from rain on a map. So instead, I will denote this as like map features, such as the fog, wind, or like the fire that happens on the point on the Wakanda map. Earth comprises distances, great and small, danger and security, open ground and narrow passes, the chances of life and death. This is an easy one to translate. This is the map layout itself, position, good spots to take, and the use of cover. The commander stands for virtues of wisdom, sincerity, benevolence, courage, and strictness. This is generally about skill, the time you put in to learn your characters, the comms you give, or if you comm at all, the kindness and benevolence you bestow onto your teammates, and the focus you have. Honestly, method and discipline can be ignored. This talks about ranks within the army and the maintenance of roads, but everybody is equal on a Rivals team, and we do not have to maintain the roads. If you would like to have a factor in place, you could say your competitive rank. But with these, we can determine which team has a better spirit, who has a better mental. If an enemy is talking shit about their team in chat, their spirit is fractured and weak, and you are more likely to win. If you cannot have a good mental, having an appearance of good mental is imperative. Do not let the enemy see your weakness. Stop talking shit about your team in chat. You can also see how good is their teamwork. Does it look like they're coordinating their attacks, or are they splitting off to be their own main character? With whom lie the advantages derived from heaven and earth? Many maps are weighted towards one side to win. How can you work with that? Clintar's first point is very hard for the attacking team to take. The defending team has the advantage of Earth. But if you strange portal onto that ledge in the back, you have the advantage. You can also determine which side has the most discipline, courage, and unity. This is mostly from text chat. It's a little hard to tell if they aren't saying anything, but sometimes you can get like a vibe. And lastly, you can determine which enemy is stronger. Is the enemy down a healer, or are you? Are they lower rank, or are you a higher rank? I know rank doesn't mean anything, but it's a slight indication. These principles can forecast victory or defeat, and it is your job to analyze these and make sure you have victory. If they are not in your favor, you need to know to not fight, to change the circumstances so they are in your favor. And when the circumstances are in your favor, you need to know to push. Now, the first chapter is where you get the famous quote, "All warfare is based on deception. Hence, when able to attack, you must seem unable. When using our forces, we must seem inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. When far away, we must make him believe we are near. Hold out baits to entice the enemy. Feign disorder and crush him." Rip Sun Tzu, you would have loved Psylocke. Obviously, this can be rather difficult in Marvel Rivals cramped battlefields. Feigning weakness is not a common tactic in this game, nor is it easy to feign strength. But stealth tactics and deception are very good in this game. Sneaking from behind, off-angling, penny mines, the Trojan horse tactic. These are all fun methods to catch your enemy off guard. Walking down main and holding M1 will not get you wins against a skilled team. You need to learn to use the map to its fullest. I don't want to just restate every point in this book, but so many are just so perfect. Such as, if your opponent is stronger than you, evade them and prepare. If they're easy to anger, rile them up and rage bait them on purpose. Make yourself look weak and then jump him. If they are on the back foot or rallying, do not let them rest. Attack where they're not prepared. Appear where you're not expected. Scratch that. R.I.P. Sun Tzu, you would have loved Spider-Man. The beginning of Chapter 2 is about connecting your resources to your goals. If you decide to lay siege to a town, your weapons will be dull and your stamina will be depleted. You need to forage on the enemy, steal their resources. We know this fundamental. Resources are cooldowns in health. You need to keep an eye on your resources and time your usage so you aren't depleted when it matters. You need to get the enemy to use their cooldowns first and forage their resources like health packs. And this also includes ult tracking. You need to stop exerting all of your resources on a side battle that doesn't really matter. Now, for Chapter 3, I will clarify, I am skipping over some bits that basically say you should not destroy towns, instead take them peacefully, because it's not really applicable to this game unless you have like insane charisma and somehow get the enemy to surrender through words. Stranger things have happened, I guess, but I don't think that's a very reliable tactic. But the highest form of generalship is to balk the enemy's plans. The next best is to prevent the junction of the enemy's forces. The next in order is to attack the enemy's army on the field. And the worst policy of all is to besiege walled cities. The rule is not to besiege walled cities if it can possibly be avoided. Being able to guess what the enemy is doing and squander their plans is one of the most difficult but rewarding skills you can have in this game. Being able to scatter the enemy team and pick them off one by one is also imperative. That's why you don't besiege a walled city, this being a well-placed team and a tank up front. You need good target priority. You need to ignore the tank when you can and attack the supports first. And also avoid literal walled cities, such as like a really good choke point like Manhattan, where they've got like those doors. Don't just press W through it. Try to negate those. You also need to know when not to fight. If equally matched, we can offer battle. If slightly inferior numbers, we can avoid the enemy. If quite unequal in every way, we can flee from him. Stop trying to 2v6. If you are down several members and waiting for them to respawn, wait at spawn for them. Stop running into battle, please. So Sun Tzu also says, he will win who knows when to fight and not to fight. He will win who knows to handle both superior and inferior forces. He will win whose army is animated by the same spirit throughout all its ranks. He will win who, prepared himself, waits to take the enemy unprepared. He will win who has military capacity and is not interfered with by the sovereign. That last one isn't really needed because there isn't really sovereign, but you know. The army being animated by the same spirit is important. If you are harsh to your teammates, if you throw insults or badger them, you will tilt them. You will temper their motivations, and you will not be motivated to fight together. This is a team game. One of your first priorities needs to be making your team work. Chapter 4 starts with saying your own defeat is your fault, but therefore the enemy's defeat is also their fault. A good fighter can secure himself from defeat, but cannot guarantee the defeat of an enemy. One may know how to conquer without being able to do it. Your gameplay is your business and the only thing you can control. So if you want to be good, you need to be practicing and not blaming others. You need to keep an eye on the enemy for mistakes and limit your own. But sometimes the enemy is just too damn good. You should never end a battle with, there was nothing I could do. But don't beat yourself up too bad at every loss. It's not productive. Instead, take that energy towards improving yourself. The skillful fighter puts himself into a position which makes defeat impossible and does not miss the moment for defeating the enemy. You need to mitigate your own mistakes. You need to be VOD reviewing and checking your own slip-ups. You are not the main character. You are not owed celestial and are only brought down by your teammates. You are the common denominator in your losses. Sun Tzu also says, thus it is in war, the victorious strategist only seeks battle after the victory has been won, whereas he who is destined to defeat first fights and afterwards looks for victory. A lot of folks in this game will see an enemy and throw themselves at them mindlessly, something I am totally not known for. Don't ask my duo about it. You need to be making plays, not fighting battles. Assess if a fight is winnable first, and then fight. Assess where your teammates are, where their teammates are. If you're a full team and a Luna tries to frontline alone, go for it. But if you're down several members, or they're somewhere else on the map, maybe don't engage the enemy tanks unless you are that girl. To ensure that your whole host may withstand the brunt of the enemy's attack and remain unshaken, this is effected by maneuvers direct and indirect. That the impact of your army may be like a grindstone dashed against an egg, this is effected by the science of weak points and strong. In all fighting, the direct method may be used for joining battle, but indirect methods will be needed in order to secure victory. Honestly, this chapter is one of my favorites. He gets really flowery about how there are infinite combinations of direct and indirect methods. But basically this chapter is about stop walking down Main and expecting it to work. You need to take off angles. You need to befuddle and bemuse, but do it in an organized way. Too many teams I see scatter to the winds to attack different points and get picked off one by one. You need to flank in pairs at least. Amid the turmoil and tumult of battle, there may seem disorder, and yet no real disorder at all. Amid confusion and chaos, your array may be without head or tail, yet it will prove against defeat. You need to combine your energy and efforts and spear that energy through the enemy team. The beginning of Chapter 6 talks about controlling where the enemy attacks and defends. You can draw an enemy in if you look weak and trap them. You can catch them off guard by appearing where you are not expected. You should always try to hit wherever they need to defend most. Largely the point and healers in this context. I have gotten in way too many fights on a random flank while the enemy takes point. Don't be like me. Always keep your eyes on the objective. Sun Tzu, his real name, by the way, Tzu just kind of means master, like master sun. He goes on to talk about secrecy and surprising the enemy in a very reverent way. He loves the art of like secrecy and deceit. And he is right. Taking the expected path will not allot you victory. Very often. Sometimes it will. Especially if the enemy team isn't as great. But if you are against someone more powerful, you need to take some more indirect methods. He also says, if we do not wish to fight, we can prevent the enemy from engaging us, even though the lines of our encampment be merely traced out on the ground. All we need to do is throw something odd and unaccountable his way. Yeah, he will have loved Spider-Man. This guy is so funny. When you're weakened and the enemy is coming at you, there's not a lot you can do. And it's often best to die with your team so you can be reset. But embezzlement, though, is a really good tactic. I already brought this up, but the Trojan horse Jeff tactic, that's really funny. And sometimes funny things can win you battles. This chapter talks a lot about dividing the enemy army, attacking their weak points while protecting your own, while not making it entirely obvious where you're coming from. If you run at an enemy support, their team is going to gun you down, so you have to be smart about when and where you take them down. Very importantly, do not repeat the tactics which have gained you one victory, but let your methods be regulated by the infinite variety of circumstances. If you keep flanking from the same spot, they will come to expect you pretty quickly. And then the moment you round the corner, you will get a Luna snowball to the face. Though direct methods are important, walking down Main absolutely has its merits and is generally the default, especially for your character with low movement. Honestly, Chapter 7 is about the march to your destination and the long, grueling days and nights to get there. It takes like a minute max to go from spawn to the point, so it's almost like I'm comparing real grueling war to a video game. Is this insensitive? It's fine. There are absolutely points to be extracted from this chapter, but I feel like a lot of it is repeating myself, so on to Chapter 8. This chapter is super short, which is great for my tiny attention span. I didn't even need Subway Surfers in the corner. Guys, this is great. This chapter goes over little clarifications. Do not linger in dangerously isolated positions. Join hands with your allies, especially in advantageous positions. When you're in a disparate situation, fight. Do not C9. Be clever about where you choose to fight and where you do not. There are roads which must not be followed, armies which must not be attacked, towns which must not be besieged, positions which must not be contested, commands of the sovereign which must not be obeyed. This chapter is about being intentional with what you do. Think about what you're doing and why. Don't just keep doing the same thing no matter the circumstances. Something insanity is doing the same thing over and over. There are 5 dangerous faults which may affect a general. Recklessness, which leads to destruction. Cowardice, which leads to capture. A hasty temper, which can be provoked by insults. A delicacy of honor, which is sensitive to shame. Over-solicitude of his men, which exposes him to worry and trouble. And to be clear, every member of Rivals is the general. You're all in charge of yourselves, but should try to communicate with each other. Be calm, calculated, but brave. Do not isolate yourself and temper your ego. So the beginning of this chapter talks about biomes and places to camp that are safe. And again, we don't really need to worry about hypothermia or camping. So instead, I will hijack this chapter to talk about something similar. Positioning. For the love of Odin, use cover. I am tired of watching my teammates walk down main, do nothing to mitigate damage, and then yell at the healers when they get gunned down. If you have range, seek high ground wherever you can. The ledge can be used as cover. You should also be aware of how the enemy is positioning. Always try to push enemies out of advantageous positions. Ground flyers, make high ground unusable, whatever you need to keep your team safe, and take those positions for yourself. If it's too hard for you and the enemy is ravaging your team, you need to counter swap. Anyone with area denial like Invisible Woman's Vortex is invaluable against a team that is positioning well. It's honestly a little tough not to just read you chapter 10. This one is so fun. Sun Tzu identifies 6 kinds of terrain here. Accessible terrain. Both sides can traverse freely. You should try to be here before the enemy, especially in high spots. Entangling. An area that can be given up but is difficult to retake. Be careful to take this. Make sure the enemy isn't prepared for you. Temporizing ground is ground neither party will gain by making the first move. Think both teams have all their ults. Whoever uses their ults first loses, because the enemy team can simply counter with their own. It's best to wait and try to bait the enemy into acting first. Narrow passes are good choke points. You should try to take them first, but if the enemy takes them first and are defending it well, you should try to bait them out or poke them out, rather than run in. A strange portal is also really good for hard spots, like the beginning of Manhattan and Klingtar where you're attacking. Precipitous heights are self-explanatory. You should try to take high ground first, but if the enemy takes high ground first, you should approach carefully and try to get them off high ground. The last is great distances from the enemy. If both teams are equal in strength, it is difficult to provoke a fight, and you can be easily disadvantaged. Guys, I fucking love this book. Sun Tzu also goes over 6 things that can destroy an army from within. Flight. If one force is hurled against another 10 times its size, the result will be the flight of the former. Now, we don't have to worry about fearing for our lives in Rivals, but sometimes an enemy team will be too much, or your team too little, and it can result in your team giving up or playing too cautious. This can be fought through, but many are too weak-willed to try. Insubordination is when the soldiers are stronger than their officer. But since there's no officer, let's say when one weak-willed jerk is trying to manhandle the team and the rest aren't taking it, well, insubordination isn't a good word for it, but it can tilt the team and it can result in a loss. Let me know if you guys have a good name for it. Collapse is when the common soldier is weaker than their officer, so a lack of communication and skill leading to a poor team performance. Ruin is when an ally gives the enemy information out of spite. Stop telling your enemy how bad your team is. You're costing yourself games. Disorganization is when communication is weak and slovenly, when you don't try or expect others to read your mind. Rout is when an underpowered force meets an overpowered one, similar to flight, but this is from overestimation of yourself or underestimation of the enemy. Think trying to fight when you're missing teammates. I know I keep going over that, but it is a big thing. Okay, I'm gonna read out just a few really good lines from this because they're just so good. He who knows these things and in fighting puts his knowledge into practice will win his battles. He who knows them not, nor practices them, will surely be defeated. The general who advances without coveting fame and retreats without fearing disgrace, whose only thought is to protect his country and do good service for his sovereign, is the jewel of the kingdom. Regard your soldiers as your children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Look upon them as your own beloved sons, and they will stand by you even unto death. Hence the saying, you know the enemy, and know yourself. Your victory will not stand in doubt. If you know heaven and know earth, you may take your victory complete. Chapter 11 is about infiltrating the enemy ground and making your troops not fear death, but putting them in desperate situations. And honestly, like, if I went over this, I feel like I'd either be repeating myself or stretching the text a little bit too much. So chapter 12 is the when in doubt, set fire to their self chapter. And if I suggested using Heathen Torch even as a joke, I think the comments would have my head. Chapter 13 is about spies. Now, you can't exactly join the enemy team and get information like Sun Tzu details. Maybe one day we'll get like a TF2 spy-like character like Mystique. That'd be fun. But for now, I will just say it's good to get a look at the enemy team early on. Invisible Woman or Loki are really good characters for this, going and just setting eyes on their spawns, seeing who comes out, where they're going, calling out who they're playing. It's really good to just set eyes, figure their stuff out so you can counter it. So yeah, I was honestly so surprised at how much directly applied to Marvel Rivals. Like, I understand it's a digital battle, so a lot of the same things will still apply, but it was still so fun. Now, I did read this book twice to prepare, and I know, like, language is one of my strong suits, but there's still probably things I misinterpreted. So if you have read Sun Tzu, let me know what you think. Technoblade never dies. If you like this video, please comment, like, subscribe. I'm trying to get to the Marvel Rivals Creator Program, which I need 10K subscribers for. So if you could help out, that'd be great. And I'm getting ready to debut a new VTuber model. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. Otherwise, have a lovely, lovely day.